Nation. We're going to bring you a game preview for this week. We got Virginia Tech versus State Thursday night under the lights, ESPN primetime from Carter Finley. We've brought on Dan Caro. Is that I got your name right there? Caro.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's close. Sorry. Well, we got Dan here to cover Virginia Tech, and then what? We reached out to a couple, and I apologize. Which who do you cover with?
Yeah, I cover Virginia Tech football and basketball. I do it on my blog, which is treadmillhorse.com, and I'm on Twitter, which is @treadmillhorse.
Cool. And we'll make sure we put all that stuff into the description. So any State fans that are interested in following some Tech stuff, and then just like, I'm sure we'll have some Virginia Tech fans following this one. So they'll want to give you a follow out on all of your socials. But let's just go ahead and jump into it. Right now, both teams are coming off of a bye, and both teams are coming off of a loss, I think, right?
Yeah, we lost to Miami in the
Miami. Yeah. So we lost to Syracuse, obviously. It wasn't the way we wanted it. We lost our quarterback, Devin Leary, of course, but we had a lot of guys not playing that game as well. We're kind of banged up in a lot of places, and we'll get to that later in the episode. But we'll jump into Virginia Tech and their season so far. You guys, obviously to call it a rebuild is probably an understatement. You got your first-year head coach, Brent Pry, coming in from Penn State, where I believe he was the defense coordinator. Is that correct?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so just talk to us a little bit about, your thoughts, initial thoughts on Brent Pry, and then we'll talk about a little bit how the season's going for you guys in your words. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean, Brent Pry's got a massive rebuild on his hands in Blacksburg. I think culturally he was the right fit. He follows like that Frank Beamer model, like where the team's going to be built on defense and special teams, like very defense focused. And then like on offense, you just want to have a hard-nosed running game. We brought over Joe Rudolph, who was the O-line coach at Wisconsin. So I think the goal here is like run the ball really well, play defense, and basically like keep it a low-scoring game, keep the clock running, and win a lot of games with your defense. And that was a model that Frank Beamer ran for a lot of years, and it worked really well.
Absolutely.
Fuente was a massive departure from that, and that clearly didn't work well at all. So, like, he's trying to get back to our roots. And what he inherited is, like, a big roster issue after Fuente left. Like, Fuente's best recruits left town. Like, if you follow college football at all, you know that Hendon Hooker is doing great things over at Tennessee.
Yeah.
He was a Justin Fuente recruit. It didn't work out at Virginia Tech, so he transferred over to Tennessee. Jalen Hyatt, it was one time a Virginia Tech commit. He's doing great things at Tennessee too. So like, there's a lot of players across the country who used to be former Virginia Tech players that are doing great things. That were Justin Fuente recruits where it didn't work out here for one reason or another. They left the program, and now we're down to a very bare bones roster, and we're trying to do the best that we can with it.
Yeah. You guys are definitely short-handed in a lot of areas. And then I'm sure there's some injury attrition going on too, as many teams are going through at this time of the year. But I guess maybe in just a couple of sentences, what do you think went wrong with the Justin Fuente era? I mean, there was a lot of expectation, a lot of hype. He had done some great things with Memphis. Do you think he was there long enough? You think he got a fair shake? Kind of what's your feelings on that? Because he wasn't there long.
No, I actually think he was there too long. Like, I think if, like, hindsight being 2020, I think he was probably there 2 years too long. I think you could see, like, the signs kind of early on that it was trending in the wrong direction. But Virginia Tech, with, like the legacy of Frank Beamer, they like to give their coaches, like, plenty of time to get going.
Sure.
I think we probably gave him too much time. And the challenges there were just, like, he actually recruited okay. I was kind of okay with the way he recruited. The thing is, like, player development wasn't very good. And then, like, on top of player development not being very good, like, the best players he couldn't keep in the program. Like, the best players ended up transferring.
Right. Yeah.
So between those two things, that was a big problem. And then another big problem that he had is he wanted to basically recruit anywhere but the state of Virginia. Like the best recruits in the state of Virginia went elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And like Virginia Tech's bread and butter for a very long time is 757. Recruit the state of Virginia, recruit Richmond, recruit like the DC area. He moved very far away from that. He was recruiting out in Texas. He was recruiting all over the place except in the state of Virginia. All the combination of all those things led to Justin Fuente eventually getting fired and Brent Pry coming in.
Yeah, you talk about the 757. That's where I grew up. I went to high school down in that area, and I'm pretty much a lifelong Virginia resident myself. So I have a good knowledge of Virginia Tech. I've got a couple of friends whose kids go to Tech, either going to school there, and I've got a couple that are on the team. So I kind of follow them, secondary, if you will, from obviously NC State. But the one thing that and we'll talk about this for a minute, is the expectations for Virginia Tech since they've come in the ACC. The ACC was really banging the drum and hoping that the Virginia Techs, the Boston colleges, the Miamis, and even to a degree Syracuse would help lift up the statue of the ACC football, and that just kind of really hasn't happened except for maybe a couple of years early on. Kind of what are your thoughts about Virginia Tech and the ACC, and then ACC football as a whole?
For some reason, I think that when Virginia Tech got into the ACC, I feel like they felt like they made it. Like the program's like, oh, we finally have a conference home. We're feeling good. And I feel like the Virginia Tech football program got they didn't make the ACC like them. Their program got turned into what all the other ACC programs were. When Virginia Tech initially came in, they were a really hard-nosed team. Mm-hmm. They came from that really tough Big East feel with Miami and West Virginia when West Virginia was good. And then they kind of just turned into another middle of the road ACC team over time. Part of that was because of Frank Beamer, obviously he started getting close to retirement age and things started
slipped a little bit.
And then obviously the Justin Fuente era hasn't never didn't go the way that everyone thought it would go. Between those two things, the program's definitely taken a step back, and I think we're kind of where we were before Frank Beamer got to Blacksburg. So there's definitely some rebuilding to do here.
Yeah, absolutely. Michael, you got something? Go for it.
What's from the fan perspective? What's the feeling around Brent Pry's first year? I mean, obviously we know it's year one, and like you said, he does have a big rebuild, and I think a lot of people recognize that. But what's the kind of fan perspective around his first year so far?
You hear a little bit of everything, the casual fan that doesn't follow the program really well. I've heard comments why did we get rid of Justin Fuente when Brent Pry is worse? Yeah. And I was like, wow, that's a pretty wild comment.
It's pretty bold.
Yeah.
Hot take.
The fans that follow the program closely, they know that there was major roster issues, and they knew it wasn't going to turn around in one season, 1 year, one off season. They knew it was going to take probably multiple recruiting classes, probably multiple trips to the transfer portal to turn this thing around. And I think that's just where we are, which is why a lot of people who follow the program closely, they see Tech right now at 2-5, and they're not super surprised. They're we knew it was going to be kind of a rough year.
Right.
Yeah. And I think to say the season got started in an auspicious way would say the least, right? Obviously you go to Old Dominion and you lose there. Your coaches get stuck in an elevator. I mean, that's just it kind of reminds me of the movie Major League, how that all started off that year, and it just, it was a bunch of follies.
Wasn't the locker room
oh yeah,
so they stole stuff out of the locker room or something too?
Yeah.
Well, as soon as the coaches got stuck in the elevator, I was like, I don't think this night's going to go the way that we thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be a rough night after that.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously every team struggles in the first game of the year to depend the season on that, but it was just, you lose to little brother, right? You're not even because everyone would say little brother would be Virginia, and then you get little brother, heck, maybe even redheaded stepchild. I don't even know. But you guys go on the you go back home to Blacksburg and get a win against Virginia. Against Boston College, where the offense showed up. I mean, you scored 27 points. Your defense again has been good. I mean, other than the probably the North Carolina game, the Pitt game, the West Virginia game, I thought you guys played much better than the score showed. That was a really close game going into the fourth quarter. But just kind of talk about about the defense a little bit, because you said that is your bread and butter, and again, I think that's moving forward once State has had the injuries that we've had. Obviously, I thought our defense was going to be a little bit better than our offense, but it's definitely stepped up a bunch because of the injuries we've had. So just give me your thoughts on your defense, and then we'll go from there.
It's definitely improved since the past couple years. I think that's just bringing Brent Pry in and bringing his scheme in, bringing really good defensive coaches in. I think we've gotten back to kind of that Bud Foster aggressive style. I would say the deep, talent wise, we're kind of middle of the ACC. I would say it's it's not a super talented defense, but I think the scheme's good. I think the scheme works with the personnel. So I've been reasonably happy with the defense. What's happened in those games where we've gotten blown out, it's the defense is out there forever because the offense keeps going 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And then by the time you get to the fourth quarter, like you mentioned in the WVU game, the defense is just worn out.
Yeah, they were gassed.
Yeah, they just get beat up in the fourth quarter. But yeah, I've been reasonably happy with the defense. The defense is about what I expected with Brent Pry coming in. The offense is way worse than I expected, and I knew that there would be talent issues, but defense is exactly where I expected. Offense is off the charts bad.
Yeah, and you bring up that fourth quarter, and I kind of alluded to it earlier. And if you look at the stats definitely bear that out. That your fourth quarter defense, it struggles because, to your point, when you're scoring about 18 points a game, there's not a lot of offensive possessions where you're going to go, and you guys typically run a little tempo, so that obviously doesn't help the defense too. So if you go 3 and out, it's a quick 3 and out, especially if you're running the ball two out of the 3 plays, and you're putting your defense right back out there. But just how is I watched that West Virginia game that was at home, and obviously Hokie Nation showed out. I think they're a really great fan base. I like to compare them to us a little bit. Our schools are very similar with the degree programs and that type of stuff, more on the tech side and the agricultural side. But other than that game, how has the home attendance been this year? Have they been patient? Have they been showing up and showing out? How's that going?
I would say shockingly good.
Yeah.
And I say that, and then we went into the Miami game 2-4, and the Miami game was sold out, and it wasn't a sold out on paper. Right. It was sold out in person. Every seat was taken. And I was wow, for a 2-4 team, that's really good.
Before we continue, I want to take a quick second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered, with agents in 5 offices throughout eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need. Offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go and check them out.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, I was just going to say, I that's why I really like your guys' fan base, because it's very similar to ours. No matter the record out there, I think both fan bases cherish that you only get 6 or 7 of these events a year, and that you're just going to go and enjoy it, whether it's the tailgate, whether it's the weather, whether it's just you love being there in Lane Stadium. I really appreciate a loyal fan base, unlike some of the other schools in the ACC that shall remain nameless, but they kind of sound like our school.
Yeah, so 2 comments on that. So first off, the one issue we've had with our fans is the students leave at halftime, and I don't know if I blame them because the football hasn't been very good. So it's I kind of understand it. I wish they would stay longer, but that's been an issue.
Sure.
And I'm glad you said the thing about NC State being like Virginia Tech, because I feel the exact same way. Like, I love that NC State has like real football fans. Like, they show up every week. They're loud. They're passionate.
Yeah.
Like they come to every game. Like, I love that about NC State. And I also love about your program, like the chip on the shoulder. I feel like Virginia Tech has the chip on the shoulder.
Sure.
I'm glad NC State like feels the same way. Like, they never get the respect that they deserve. So I do feel like both programs are really similar.
Just out of curiosity, have you ever come down to Carter Finley Stadium?
Not for a football game. I've definitely been to Raleigh and I've been on campus. I just haven't made it to like a game there yet, but it's on my list. I feel like I've been to every other
Really?
road venue in North Carolina in the ACC. I've been at UNC, at Duke, at Wake Forest. I just haven't been to NC State yet. But
Gotcha.
I plan to change that soon.
Yeah, part of that is just with the way the divisions were set up.
Yeah, they play once every 14 years.
Yeah,
at home.
At home. Yeah. So it's like I'm glad that's changing because I haven't been to Lane Stadium either. So I'm definitely gonna make a trip up there in the near future once they change the schedules.
Yeah. I actually have been to Lane Stadium, but it wasn't to see State play. I have a coworker who went to Virginia Tech, and she got her degree in forestry and now works for the Army. So I don't know how that works out, but whatever. But they were playing Carolina, and so I came and rooted, obviously, for Virginia Tech, wearing my State gear, and then all the fans were like, "You're wearing the wrong color," and I'm like, so they didn't get the irony of what I was trying to pull off, but it was okay. Tech won, and that's all that mattered. But so speaking of now the realignments and the doing away with the conference, the divisions, kind of, what are your thoughts on all of that from a Virginia Tech perspective? Obviously, I hate the term, but I'll just use it. You've been involved in coastal chaos since the beginning of divisions, but I think it's coastal chaos because most of the teams aren't very good and they just kind of create the chaos amongst themselves. But what are your thoughts on all of that?
I'm happy about it in that like we actually get to play like a wider variety of like conference opponents.
Yeah.
Like you said, like I think NC State's like a great football school and I would love to play NC State more, but like we play them like once every 7 years or something. And it's like,
and it's only 4 hours away.
Yeah,
so it's not a hard trip. Yeah.
So I'm happy to see that change. I also am happy to see the divisions go away. And I know that sounds kind of weird from like a coastal division team. I just think that like it's made it very easy for Virginia Tech just to, pardon the pun, but coast, just because they know that like the coastal's not that tough and you can be a pretty mediocre team and still win the coastal.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I think making it more difficult to make the championship game is actually going to help out and elevate the program.
Sure.
It's going to be much harder now without divisions to do that. So like there's no more coasting. Like if you actually like want to make a championship game, you actually have to have a good and legitimate football team, not just get there because every other team in your divisions
has done it. Yeah. I think Michael, I think it was you that found that tweet a couple of weeks ago about the average losses for like the coastal division versus the Atlantic. And I think it was like almost 3 losses for the coastal and like just under 2 for the Atlantic during this whole period. So that speaks kind of what your point is, Dan. So I'm excited. I'm excited more for the just playing everybody, like, because if you're a true fan of your program and like you want to go explore these great cities in the ACC, I mean, there's a ton of great cities. You got Boston, Atlanta, Blacksburg and Charlottesville and South Bend to a degree, some great places to go hang out and explore. And my goal is to get to every ACC football stadium. I'm about 2/3 of the way there. And if you're just a fan of football, I think you're going to really enjoy the doing away of the divisions, because like there's nothing like going to Blacksburg even if you're an opposing fan, going to see that entrance of Enter Sandman. I mean, I witnessed it during the day and it was awesome. I can only imagine for a night game how much more it's amped up. What does that do for you as a fan, just watching that team come in and just like, I mean, like the stadium is literally rocking. I mean, like you can see like bends like in like the stand, like it's crazy. Like, so just talk to me about that. So
like you mentioned the day game versus the night game. The day for the Enter Sandman during the day is like exciting. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
cool. Like everyone's jumping up and down. The stadium's kind of shaking.
Yeah.
Like it's fun. At night, it's scary. Like
Yeah.
at night, you're like, this is like a legit earthquake. Like there's like fireworks going off. Like it's like a different vibe altogether. It's still very cool, but like if you're an opposing fan and you're there at night, you're like,
what are we
holy
getting
crap,
ourselves
like,
into,
yeah,
right?
Things are about to go down.
yeah. It's about to get real.
It's really fun though, and if you're a college football fan, you should definitely make it to Blacksburg at some point because Enter Sandman's just a lot of fun. It's like a really, really exciting time.
Do you know what like what started that tradition? Just I mean I know it's been going on for quite a long time. I mean, it just happened and then it just went wild and then it just kind of stuck from there and they just kept kind of doing it and then they're like, huh, we got something here.
So this is one of those situations where I kind of have my own history and like, here's how I remember it happening.
Sure.
And it could be wrong, like, but here's how I remember it. So I was a student from like 2001 through 2004, right? And the way I remember it is like they played Enter Sandman like during the 2000 season, and it was like the entrance song, right? They would come out every day, and people would get excited, and they do the whole "Let's Go Hokies," and they'd be like screaming and everything. The team would come out, but it was just like a song in the entrance. The night that I remembered that change was like the 2003 game against Miami, where we beat number 2 Miami 31-7. Like that night, the vibe of Enter Sandman changed because that's when everyone started jumping up and down and going crazy, and the stadium was shaking. And then from that game on, like every game I remember from that night on, like they did the whole jumping up and down and like the stadium shaking and the whole thing.
Gotcha.
So that's how I remember the evolution of Enter Sandman. If people like the band claims that they jumped before that game or whatever, and I'm sure that they did. I didn't really notice it, but that was the night that I remembered Enter Sandman actually being Enter Sandman.
It just felt different that night, huh?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. So that's the one thing that, we at Tuffy Talk and we kind of had the discussions and like we want to have like some cool tradition, some of the schools, like Ohio State with dotting the I, Iowa waving to the kids in the hospital, like just cool things, Florida playing Tom Petty after the third quarter. I think some of those things, and there's more, obviously, I'm just, throwing a few out. I really wish that somehow, we're a school that's been playing football over 130 years. Like, I can't imagine how we haven't figured out something like to get behind. So anyway, if anyone from NC State's listening, let's come up with something. We need something for us to be known as. Because I think that just brings national relevance to your program too, right? Like, I remember, I think was it the Ohio State game where Metallica actually like was on the screen? Was that the game they actually appeared on screen? I know they were on one of the games. I thought it was a big game, but I can't remember if it was Ohio State.
I feel like it was a Notre Dame game, but
maybe Notre Dame.
Year, like 2017, 2018.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago. You're right. Yeah, it was definitely more recent. But anyway, I just thought it was cool because then the band's like, all right, now we're in on it too. Like, especially for a band that was all against Napster and all that stuff that they embraced you guys playing their song. But anyway, let's get back to some real football here. So before we jump in, one last question for you on this first part of the episode. Up until this point, you've kind of given, your thoughts on the program. Where do you see, obviously we're kind of about the halfway point of the season at this point. How do you feel with the second half of the schedule coming up for you guys? Because I think it gets a little easier, kind of, sort of. But, I mean, Duke's no slouch. You got Georgia Tech after us. Liberty just had a nice win yesterday against BYU. And then you got Virginia, which they're in shambles. Like, you guys think you guys are in a bad spot right now. I think Virginia is almost as bad because they're breaking in, obviously, their first year head coach with Tony Elliott. But just kind of give me your thoughts on the second half of the season as it's going to break out with us and Georgia Tech and Duke, Liberty, and Virginia.
So, like, let's start with the NC State game. I don't like it at all because, like, our offense has issues to begin with, and I think that NC State has a pretty elite defense this year. So I don't like that combination. I think it's going to go badly for Virginia Tech, regardless of who's playing quarterback for NC State. I think it's kind of irrelevant. Like, I think your defense against our offense is just a major mismatch, and it's not going to go well for the Hokies. After that, like, I see it like as 4 coin flip games. I like Virginia Tech's chances against Georgia Tech and UVA at home. I think they can get wins there. Those 2 road games against Duke and Liberty, both those teams are looking better than I expected going into the season. So I'm a little bit concerned about them. I do think that they're winnable. I think that if Tech shows up and plays well, they can get wins at both those places. But like just on the surface, like they look like two pretty good teams, and playing on the road just makes them even harder.
Yeah, Georgia Tech is definitely, since they got rid of Collins, they've kind of turned it around a little bit. They've definitely been playing a lot harder and gotten a couple of wins out of the last, like, I think they're like 2-3 or 2-4 out of their last couple of games. But so it looks like you're saying probably 4 wins for Price first season. It's kind of what you're looking at, 4-8. It's kind of maybe 5. Maybe 5.
4 safe, like 5 would be a little bit of a stretch. I don't know that they'll get to 5, and I definitely don't think they're going to a bowl, so I wouldn't worry about a bowl game.
Yeah,
but 4 seems like a safe bet.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Wolfpack Nation, we're going to end it there. Just kind of, gave a quick little teaser there. What Dan gave us about the state game, but we're definitely going to break into that a lot more on episode 2. Dan, we really appreciate you here on episode 1, and then we got all your socials, so we'll definitely put those in. But Wolfpack Nation, hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. And while you're there, hit that bell for notifications so you see all of these great interviews that we're putting out for you. And if you're interested, we do have a members only channel. All that description is that information will be in the description below. So, we'll wrap it up for episode 1 here, and we'll be back with episode 2, and we'll break it down for you for this Thursday night's game at Carter Finley. All right, Wolfpack Nation, we'll see you in episode 2.